It's time to make it, just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Welcome to today's show. I'm David Farrell. I'm going to show you how to make Cambodian chicken. Cambodian chicken is an oriental style of chicken that uses a marinade of oriental sauces, a glaze of some oil and spices, and then a dipping sauce for flavor. And I start with a 2 to 3 pound chicken. Now, you'll note on this chicken that I used a pair of poultry shears to just cut down either side of the backbone. Then I opened it up and I used a sharp knife to cut along each side of this breastbone, and then a pair of shears to cut the sides of it off the wishbone, and then lifted the wishbone out. That's a process called spatchcocking. And what it does, and the reason you do it, is you want to let the chicken lay flat while it's cooking, and it'll cook more evenly and more quickly that way. And then to let the marinade in, I just made some slashes, 2 slashes along the breasts on each side, 2 on the thighs, 2 on the drumsticks, and there you have a way to let the marinade into the chicken without having to stuff it under the skin. To make the marinade, I put 5 cloves of garlic in this blender, and to it I'm going to add 25 milliliters of sugar and 5 milliliters of salt. That's 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. And we'll just put them in the blender. And we're going to add some oriental sauces now. And what I have in this cup are 15 milliliters or 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and 15 milliliters or 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce. Hoisin is an Asian sauce available in the Asian section of your supermarket. And we're just going to add them to my blender. Now you can use a food processor or one of those immersion little hand blenders if you want. But I'm just going to put it in, and I'm going to pulse it around until it's a paste. And after it's pulsed for a few seconds, you just want to push any big chunks of garlic down and give it some more. It took about a minute for the garlic to get all changed into a paste, and it's looking just right. Now, we're going to take our spatchcock chicken in a plain, ordinary plastic bag, and we're going to put the chicken in the plastic bag. And once it's in the plastic bag, we're just going to add the marinade to it. Rub it all over the surface. And make sure you get it all in with a little spatula there. There we go. And now we're going to just take the chicken and rub the marinade in all over the surface of the chicken. That chicken is now going to get sealed up in the bag. There we go. Just put a twist tie on it. And we'll put it in a pan in case it leaks a bit. And that's going to go in the fridge for overnight that's going to go in the fridge from 5 hours to overnight when we'll finish the chicken off. So I'll see you tomorrow as the chicken marinates. I will let you know that during the time it's in the fridge, I'm going to flip it over 2 or 3 times and rub the marinade in the surface again. So see you back tomorrow. I've got my cooktop set up because we need to make a glaze for the Cambodian chicken. They use a garlic flavored oil, just a touch of mild pepper, red pepper in it. I don't want spicy, so I'm going to use paprika. But we'll start off with, I put 25 milliliters or 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in this pan. I normally use a little pan, but I want you to see what I'm doing. And I've got it heated up to just about medium. And I'm going to throw the garlic in. And what I have there is 1 clove of garlic that's just cut into big chunks. And what we're going to do is just stir it until it starts to get a little golden in the oil, because what we're looking to do is to flavor the oil for the glaze. So this will take a couple of minutes. You can see that the garlic's not brown, but just golden, and that's exactly what you're looking for. And here, speed is of the essence, because I'm going to take 10 milliliters or 2 teaspoons of paprika, and I'm going to dump it in there, and it's got to be literally just seconds it's in there just to get the paprika to bloom without burning. So we're just going to dump that in, and we're going to stir it literally for just seconds, and then we're going to pour that into a bowl. And there's your glaze. There we go. We've made the glaze. So now we need to let the glaze cool down just a little bit, and we'll be getting the chicken out and brushing it on the skin side. So give me a second to get rid of my cooktop. The chicken has had some chance for some of the excess marinade to drain off of it, and I just cooled the glaze for a minute or so. You just don't want it really steaming hot. And now we're going to put the skin on the plate, skin side up, and we're going to paint the skin side with the glaze. And as you can see, it gives it a really dark color. And that is one of the hallmarks of this recipe. Just get it all over the surfaces. At this point is when I generally start getting hungry, because really nice colors on chicken just sort of get the mind going about how good it's going to taste later. Get it under the wing there. And now what we're going to do, now that we got this side painted, before we go out to our barbecue where we're going to cook it, I'm just going to clean up my counter here and make a dipping sauce that we're going to use to serve it with. And the reason you want to make it ahead is you want the flavors to kind of marry together. And to make the dipping sauce, what I have is 25 milliliters of soy sauce. I have 25 milliliters of lime juice. I have 5 milliliters of coarse ground black pepper. And we're just going to mix those 3 together in a bowl. So we'll just put them all in. And by doing it ahead of time, some of the flavor of the pepper will go out into the liquid. So you want to do this before you start cooking your chicken. And we just need to get a spoon and give it a little stir. And we're going to let our dipping sauce sit until we're serving. And now we're going to go out to the barbecue and put the chicken on and show you how to cook it. Now, there are 3 ways you can cook your Cambodian chicken. You can use my smoke, as I've done in the past with my smoker, which you could set to 350 degrees and smoke the chicken. Or you can use a gas grill, and what I've done with the gas grill is mine has 3 burners that run crosswise. I've just lit the back one, and you want it to be between 325 and 375 on this thermometer. And what we're going to do is open the gas grill up and put the chicken not over the flame. You want it to be at 350 degrees roughly, and put it skin side down like that. And then we're going to take the leftover glaze we had from inside and paint the other side. With the glaze. And we're going to shut the lid and let it cook for 25 minutes on the skin side. I'll see you in 25 minutes. The chicken cooked for 20 to 25 minutes on the skin side, and we want to give it a flip. Now, this can be a little bit difficult to do, so I always try to use 2 spatulas. It just makes it easier. Put one under each side and flip it over. And the only reason you cook it skin side down first is to rinse some of that fat off the skin. It makes it a bit crispier. And now we're just going to close the lid and let this cook until the internal temperature of the breast is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll talk to you when that happens. It's been a little over an hour that we've had the chicken in the smoker at 350 degrees. And we just want to make sure that the internal temperature is between 170 and 175 in the breast. 174, perfect. So the chicken is ready to take off of the barbecue. And we'll just put that there and we'll lift it off. And now you'll want to let this rest for about 10 minutes before you cut it up. See you inside. Brought the chicken in from the barbecue. It has a gorgeous color and it looks terrific, and I've let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes. It just makes it easier to cut up if it's a little cooler. And now we have to cut it into pieces. Now the way I like to start cutting into pieces is to start with the drumstick and just cut through right at the drumstick joint, just like that. And then I'll take one of the thighs off. Just cut through, just like that. And there's a thigh. Little slippery devil, there we go. And then we'll want to take the wing off. So just cut through at the wing joint. And there's a nice wing for someone with the wonderful crispy skin you get on the wing. And then cut the breast down the middle. And this is a big chunk of meat, so I like to cut it into 2, because a lot of people like white meat. There we go. And if the skin tends to pull off, just put it back. So there's some breast pieces. And you're just going to do the same thing with the other side. When you go to serve it, you remember we made some dipping sauce. So I'm just going to take one of these drumsticks and try it. And you just have a couple of teaspoons of the dipping sauce, put the chicken in it, and give it a bite. There's a good garlic hit from the marinade. There's a wonderful, rich flavor from the soy sauce and the hoisin. The chicken is so incredibly moist, it just, as you can see, it just gets all over your fingers and it'll run down your chin, which is a good thing. This is a terrific Cambodian chicken. I thank those people for their flavor profile, and the best part is, you can make it.
In this episode, David made Cambodian chicken using 1.5 kilograms of chicken. The ingredients for the marinade are 5 cloves of garlic, 25 milliliters of sugar, 5 milliliters of salt, 15 milliliters of soy sauce, and 15 milliliters of hoisin sauce. For the glaze, the ingredients are 25 milliliters of vegetable oil, 1 clove of garlic crushed, and 10 milliliters of paprika. For the dipping sauce, the ingredients are 5 milliliters of fresh ground pepper, 25 milliliters of soy sauce, and 25 milliliters of bottled lime juice or fresh lime juice. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca. As David would say, you can make it. It's time to make it. Just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
I'm really glad you tuned in to this episode of You Can Make It. Today I'm going to make one of my favorite things for the smoker, but it can also be done in an oven, and that's Memphis ribs. Now most people, when they get ribs, like them with a lot of sticky barbecue sauce all over them, and they're sweet and they're spicy, and those are really good ribs and I like them. But Memphis ribs are made with just a dry rub on them, so they're herbs and spices and no sticky sauce. Some people put sauce on the table with them for serving with them, but the ribs themselves are dry and have a wonderful spicy coating. So to make Memphis ribs, you need to first make a Memphis rub. Now you can go to your supermarket or online and find Memphis rubs for sale and skip this step if you want. But if you want to make your own, this is how I make Memphis rubs. First of all, I got my spices together, and what I have here is 40 milliliters or 3 tablespoons of paprika. I have 30 milliliters or 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. I have 15 milliliters or 1 tablespoon of garlic. I have 8 milliliters or 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. I have 8 milliliters or 1.5 teaspoon of ginger. I have 8 milliliters or 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder. I have 5 milliliters or 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. I have 15 milliliters or 1 tablespoon of dried oregano and 5 milliliters or 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. All you have to do to make your rub is put them in a bowl and mix it together. So I'll just do that. Now you'll note this has a lot less salt and sugar than your average barbecue rub. That's because it has more herbs in it, which gives you a really good coating when you're making a dry rib, like Memphis ribs. So we'll just mix that together. It always works better with your fingers. And there you have about a cup or a little over a cup of Memphis rub that you can use any place else you use a barbecue rub or on Memphis ribs or chicken wings or anything you like. So now I'm just going to wash my hands and get my ribs out and get ready to prepare them. So now I have a nice rack of St. Louis style side ribs. You can do this with back ribs or other ribs, but if you're doing with back ribs, cook them a little less than I do when you see me cooking these. But using some reasonably thick side ribs, this is a nice rack of ribs. Now what makes it St. Louis cut is the breastbone is taken off the top and the flatty flap on the bottom is cut off. So that's already done, and these are St. Louis style ribs. You can make a full rib rack if you want without St. Louis style. It'll just have the bones and that in it, and it will still work fine with this recipe. Now, on the back of the ribs, you'll notice what I call the silver skin. And some people just leave that on in a long, slow cook, but I find you get a better flavor going into the meat if you take it off. And it's quite easy to take off. You just take a knife and you have to lift a corner of it up and just slice it back like that. Now once you do that and you've got a little bit to grip onto, it wants to slip out of your fingers. So grab a piece of paper towel and pinch it and just pull back on it. Now sometimes it'll all pull off at once. Other times you got to do it in 2 or 3 strips. This is going to be a 2 or 3 strip time. Just pull it off, and there goes the silver skin. So now that we've got the silver skin off of the ribs, we're just going to put some of our Memphis rub on the ribs. Now it's really important that nothing comes into contact with the pork and the rub, because if it does, the pork will contaminate the rub and you will have to throw out any you don't use. So get a spoon, and we're going to use the spoon to spread the rub, but never let the spoon touch the pork. So we're just going to start with about a teaspoon of the rub, and make that a teaspoon and a half here, and just rub it in. Now you know I'm not putting a whole lot on, because more is going to be added later. But you just want to make sure you get a good layer rubbed in there, because you want the flavor to work its way into the meat. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. And remember, the spoon cannot touch the pork. You don't want to contaminate the rest of the rub. And then just rub it in. And now that the ribs had the rub put all over it, this is going to go into the fridge uncovered for 2 hours to overnight. The reason for that is you want to give the rub a chance to sit up on the ribs and the surface to be nice and dry when you smoke the ribs. So I'm just going to let these sit for a couple hours, and I'll see you then. I preheated my smoker to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. You can do these in a 230 degree Fahrenheit oven by putting the ribs on a rack over a tray in your oven. They will taste delicious, but they won't have that smoky flavor. But I just took the ribs and put them in my 230 degree Fahrenheit smoker, where they're going to sit for 2 hours and get all nice and tasty and smoky. I'll see you in a couple hours. While the ribs are cooking for 2 hours, I'm just going to make up a sauce that acts as a bit of a glue for the rub as I'll be putting more layers on. And it's really easy to make this sauce. It gives a nice tart flavor to the ribs and helps get a good thick layer of the rub on it to give that really great coating. And all of this is 125 milliliters or half a cup of cider vinegar and 25 milliliters or 2 tablespoons of plain old yellow mustard like you'd get at any ballpark. So just put the cider vinegar in with the mustard and mix it up. And when that's mixed, you've got the sauce I'll be using for the other sections. There we go. Okay, so I'll see you when the 2 hours of the smoking ribs is up and we're putting the first layer of sauce on them. We have been smoking the ribs for 2 hours, and now it's time to put our first layer of sauce on them. As you can see, they're already getting a nice color on them. And if you want to put those things up top, I'm just making the rib tips, no sweat there. Now, we're going to take some of the sauce with the vinegar and the mustard and give it a good generous brushing. And then we're going to sprinkle some Memphis rub over them. And of course, you've got to get both sides. And some Memphis rub on this side. Now, once I've got the Memphis rub on this side, we're going to close it up and let it cook for another hour before we give it another shot of sauce and rub. I will see you in an hour. The ribs have been cooking for another hour after our first application of the sauce and spices, so we're going to give it another application of the mustard and vinegar sauce. And of course, we need to give it a little bit more of the Memphis rub too. And we'll flip it over. And sauce and rub the other side. There we go. So, at this point, we're going to be cooking the ribs no longer by time, but by temperature. We want to cook them so the internal temperature gets up to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. So I have my remote thermometer, and I'm going to put the probe from the thermometer between two bones. It cannot touch a bone. And just slide it in. There we go. And that'll tell me when it gets to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's when we'll do our next step with the ribs. So I've smoked the ribs for 2 hours. Then I gave them a brush with the sauce and a sprinkling of the rub. I smoked them for another hour, brushed them with the sauce, gave them a sprinkling of the rub, and put my temperature probe into it. Now I've cooked them to an internal temperature of 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and that took about an hour and a half. So now I'm going to give them one more brushing of the sauce and sprinkling of the rub and let them cook for 30 to 40 minutes more to get a nice crust on them, and then we'll take them inside and give them a taste. Bear with me. So the ribs did their 30 minutes in the smoker to finish off the nice, dry, crispy crust that's now over all the ribs. They just look absolutely delicious. Let's cut in and see what they look like here. Sorry, got the angle wrong. We'll just cut one of the ribs out and take a look at it. We got a wonderful, nice smoke ring. You can see the red in there. And they've definitely got a wonderful odor. Let's take a bite of one. They're so tender. They do not fall off the bone, they bite off the bone. You can see that there's just the bite there and the meat hasn't fallen off. The spices and the vinegar sauce we used on them gives it a wonderful, spicy, touch of sour, touch of heat taste that is just unbelievable. You can put some barbecue sauce on these at the table if you want, but I don't think you need to. These are delicious Memphis ribs, and the best part is you can make them. In this recipe, I make Memphis ribs. The ingredients for the Memphis rub are 40 milliliters paprika, 30 milliliters brown sugar, 15 milliliters garlic powder, 8 milliliters black pepper, 8 milliliters ginger, 8 milliliters onion powder, 5 milliliters thyme, and 15 milliliters oregano. The ingredients for the ribs are 1 rack spare ribs, 75 milliliters Memphis rub, 125 milliliters cider vinegar, and 25 milliliters prepared mustard. You can find the complete recipe at my blog, oldfatguy.ca.